Welcome back to PSC Tech Bytes. Today we start a new series of videos about how to create extensions for Microsoft Teams using the Yeoman Generator version 3. And specifically with the Yeoman v3 we can create tabs for Teams which can be configurable or personal tabs. We can create both outgoing webhooks, connectors and messaging extension, as well as provide support for localization. So in this series of video, one by one, we will see how to create each of them, and today we will start with creating Teams tabs. So, like always, let me move to the demo environment and let me show you how to do that in practice. So, let's start creating a fresh new solution in a new folder by using the Yeoman Generator. We have first of all to provide the name for our solution. We can choose to use the current folder, which is my choice, and we can provide a title for the solution. And as we saw in the previous video, we can also provide the name of a company. We can choose the version of the manifest, of the team extension manifest, and 1.8 is a good one so far. And we can choose to use the simplified or quick scaffolding so that we will see a smaller number of questions and prompts in this tool. So I will choose yes, and I'm going to create a tab. The tab will be eventually published at a specific URL, and I can specify here what the URL will be. And then I can define if I want to see a loading indicator while the tab will be loading. I can provide a name for my tab, which will be my first tab. And I can choose if it will be a configurable tab, so it will be included in a chat or in a channel, or if it will be a personal or static one, so it will be included in a personal app. And so far I want to create a configurable one. It will be included in a team, and I can eventually enable single sign-on, which we will cover later on, so right now I will simply reply with no. I don't want to see this tab in SharePoint Online, so I will answer no as well here. Now the scaffolding is running, and in a matter of few seconds I will have my solution ready to go. And the solution is now ready, so by running code dot, I can see the source code of my solution and we can dig into it. As you already saw in the previous episode, we have the environment file where we can configure all of the setting about our solution, and specifically I want to configure an ngrok subdomain in order to host my solution in a specific ngrok based subdomain, which could be, for example, your Teams 3 tab, and I will prefix with my company name for the sake of having a unique URL. And I can save the environment file. Then in the SRC folder, we have the server, the public, and the client part of the story, as well as the manifest, as we already saw in the previous episode. So now, if I dig into the client folder, we can see that in the My First Tab subfolder, we have 3 TSX files. One represents the actual React component for my team tab. The other one is the configuration component that we will be used to configure the tab when we will add the tab to a target channel in a team. And the tab remove TSX component is the one that will be shown to the user when the user will eventually remove our tab from the target team channel. So let's start focusing on the tab content. And here we see that in Yeoman v3 we have React hooks. So for example, we use the use Teams to get information about the fact that we are or not in Teams, what is the team and what is the context of Teams from an SDK point of view. We also define a couple of use effect hooks so that we can understand when the component is rendered inside Microsoft Teams or not, and so on and so forth. And then in the actual render of the component, we use the Fluent UI components for React North Stars package, and these components are defined and available at the following URL. So in Fluent side z22.web.core.windows.net, not a very friendly URL, but here you can find the whole documentation about these components. You can see what the components are and you can play with them. So let's assume, for example, that we want to slightly customize the tab that we just created. So, for example, we want to add an accordion to the content of our tab. So we can go here and we can import the accordion component. If we go back here, we can see that the accordion can give us a UI, which is based on the well-known accordion behavior. We can expand and collapse items. So in order to do that, we will need to define a collection or an array of panels that we will render inside the accordion, like for example this one. I have 3 panels. One will include HTML content, the other 2 which will simply include text-based content. And then we can include in the render of our tab the content of the accordion. So we can create a div, and I can include inside the div an accordion component. So I will say accordion, and I will provide the panels that I want to use for my accordion, which will be the array of panels that I just defined. And for example, I can define that I want to have an exclusive behavior, so just one panel will be open at a single point in time. I can do that. I can also eventually customize the behavior of the button. So I can say, for example, that my button will be the primary button of my UI. And rather than having the click event right here in the onClick, I want to replace it using another hook of React hooks, which will allow me to define a onClick event for my button. So I can get an import for the useCallback hook, and I can define inside of my code base that I want to handle the click of my button with an handle click that I will define, and which will be based on the useCallback hook, and it will use an asynchronous method to manage to handle the click on the button. And for example, here you can see you just clicked the button. Okay, this will be the behavior of my hook, just for the sake of making an example. So once I have done that, I also have to eventually provide for the useCallback a dependency which I don't need right now, so I will simply provide an empty array. And then I can move here and I can replace this inline event with my handle click that I defined right here as a constant. Now that I'm ready to run my solution and to test it, we can start the terminal window and we can say gulp ngrok-serve. This will start the local server and will configure ngrok to be a transparent proxy to my local server. And once it will be ready, I will be able to publish my solution, my extension in Microsoft Teams and to test it. So let's wait a few more seconds. And once it will be ready, we can switch to Microsoft Teams and we can add this custom solution to a team. For example, I can now go here in my team, in my development environment, and I can say Manage Team. And under Apps, I can add a new app uploading a package. The app will be YoTeams3 tab, which is the one I just created. Let me select the zip file of the package and let me add it to my target team. By doing that, I will be able to add, for example, in the general channel, a new tab, which will be based on my solution. And here we can see the configuration window, and this is my custom setting that I can provide through the configuration React component. I can save, and I will see that I have my first tab with my button, which is implementing the behavior that I created, and I have the accordion with my items. So you can easily customize the content of your Teams tab using the Fluent UI components and using the React hooks. And you can do that as well for the config and for the remove tab. Then in the public folder we have still for the tab a set of HTML files which will simply render the React component that we saw, and in the server part of the story we will simply have the export of the tab and some additional behaviors, for example here to prevent my HTML content to be rendered in frame which are not rendered inside the Teams UI, just for the sake of preserving the behavior of my solution and being sure that my solution will be run just and only in Microsoft Teams. So that's it for this demo so far. Like always, thank you for watching this video. I hope you found it interesting and I'm really looking forward to seeing you next week. And remember to subscribe to this channel. Thank you.